Hi there, Sandra here from createinspain. Today I'm using Procreate and I want to show you how I go from this very peculiar looking line drawing to this. So I'm going to start off showing you this one and just explaining some very basic things of how to draw so you draw in a constructive manner, non-destructive drawing, and that largely centers upon layers. However, one particular tip which you may not realise about Procreate is that you have some canvas guides. If you tap on the wrench and you go to drawing guide and switch that on, edit the drawing guide, brings up the options and you can choose whichever option you need. Now this is really handy if you want to draw something and it needs to be the same. If you don't want to continue drawing with the drawing guide, then you turn off the drawing assist on that layer and do your individual bits and pieces. But for the bits you want your symmetry on, use that guide and you'll be fine. So the other thing that you need to do is to work in separate layers. This is the non-destructive part, because if your layers are all separate, you can individually edit them, and then that makes your life so much easier if you want to make changes at a later date, or if you want to copy them for other features for other drawings, or just manipulate the drawing to a different character pose or something of that nature. Now you notice here I've got two of these layers which are the same, and one of them you can see, one of them you can't. That one is checked and this one is not. When I start off with a line drawing and I've got something as I really want it to be, and in this case the head and the body go together, they're not going to be altered in any way apart from colouring, then I actually join the pieces together and just make them into one layer rather than into two. Now originally when I drew this I had like a rounded triangle shape and then the shape of the head, and all you do to put them together is to join the layers, go to merge down and then erase the lines that you don't want anymore. So that's an easy way of cutting down on the number of layers that you've got if you know that you're not going to want to alter that particular line. And we are talking about the line formation at the moment. We're not talking about the colour fill, simply the line formation. So having all the limbs on a different layer means that I can select them and move them however I like. And in fact on this particular drawing I drew it with the idea of it being a dancing hippo, and then I decided, no, let's have a change, let's have her playing tennis. And so that's what I ended up doing. I ended up moving that leg because the pose didn't look right for someone playing tennis. What am I talking about? Hippos playing tennis, and it didn't look right. Yeah. Sometimes I catch myself saying things and I think, yeah, really odd. Okay, so that is the best thing to do. Keep everything on separate layers. Now you notice this layer here, which you cannot see. I'll switch this one off and I'll switch this one on. This one is an assisted reference layer. If I tap on this, you see it's got drawing assist on and it has reference on. Now, the idea of having a reference layer is so that you can put a layer above it and you can do things to that layer that you don't necessarily want to keep. So for example, if I were to put a colour in here, let's go for some silly sort of colour, and I decided actually I want to change that to like grey or something, I can do that. And it's on that layer there. Actually I'll change it back to the orange so you can see the layer. Okay, it's on that layer, it's not on that one. So it's filling that shape with the colour, but this layer is unchanged. So if you want to make several different styles of the same drawing in different colorways, That's a great way to be able to do it. Put it as a reference layer. Now the other thing that I tend to do is I tend to keep a copy of the line drawing, the complete line drawing in the file. I duplicate it and I lock it so that I know whatever I do, if I make a mess, if I forget to add new layers and do something to a layer where I didn't mean to, I've got the original line drawing. The other reason for keeping the original line drawing as a copy is that if you go over the black lines at any point and they kind of get faded out for whatever reason, you've done something and you think, oh, actually I must have gone over that line, it must have been in the layer that I didn't realise it was in or whatever. You can then take the line drawing and put it to the top of the queue, and you can put it over what you've already done to clear it up, and no extra effort involved. Very useful thing to do, I find. So that's how I got to the line drawing stage. Now I'm going to undo that because I don't necessarily want it. Go back to the gallery. So we've gone from there. So how do we get to this one? Well, this one here has got shading on it. Now to get rid of all the lines that we had in the previous one, all you're going to do is select a layer and rub out the bits that you don't want. And that is a major reason for having all the limbs in a separate layer. You can get rid of the lines around the limbs where you don't actually want them. Now up here, I don't know if you can see it too clearly, but on this layer I have the alpha lock on. So in this particular case, I did my reference layer, put another layer over the top, so this layer ended up only filling into this layer here. So this was a plain grey. And then once I got the plain grey base colour into it, I made that into an alpha lock, and then that meant that when I put shading over the top, it stayed within the original design. It didn't go all the way out here. What I do is I go onto this layer here, and I'll do it in a different colour so that you can actually see it. So I'll change the colour. I've just got a monoline on there, and I'll change it to a purple. Yeah, that will do nicely. Okay. So what I did was I did some really, not thick enough, some really sort of heavy duty lines around here. Now you notice I can scribble on here and nothing's happening because I have the alpha lock on. And around there, do a little bit just there. Leave a gap underneath the chin because this is going to blur. And put some there and some around there. And I might even just put a bit of pink on the cheeks. Let's see what that does for us. Okay, this looks really weird, I grant you, but hold still. Magic is about to happen. Go to the magic wand, go to Gaussian Blur, and drag your pencil from left to right. And lo and behold, your shadows appear. Now because I have the alpha lock on, it can only go over the colour that was already there. But if you notice this bit here, there's a bit of colour showing over this part of the arm. And normally that would be a bit of a pain because you can't easily go in and draw over the top and get it exactly lined up and everything. Take it from me, it's a pain in the neck. However, what you can do is you can take this layer, which is the line drawing, and you can drag it. Come on, drag. It doesn't want to do it. Right, drag it over the top layer here, and now you have the line back in place where it ought to be, and you have your hippo with the shadows on. In fact, I quite like that one. So that's how you get to that. So then all you've got to do is draw your accessories and your clothing, and it's relatively easy to do. Depends how good you are at drawing accessories and clothing, obviously, but it's done in layers like this on top of your original drawing. Now, as it happens, the dress and the trainers I have drawn and I've put back into the bottom layer because I'm not going to do anything else with this design. But if I wanted to, for example, from this selection here, I could make that a reference layer. I could put another layer on the top of that, and I could go for, say, a blue colour, and I can change the colour of her dress, and I haven't had to redraw it, and I still have the original drawing. This has just changed the colourway for me. And obviously with the hat, because it's in its own layer, I could change that regardless, and I could remove the spots if I don't want the spots, etc. So that is one of the functions of the layering system and the reference layer. And with this particular drawing, I did, as I think I mentioned, change the position of the leg, which I couldn't have done or I could do, but it would be far more difficult to do if it wasn't on its own layer. And that is why when I keep the design, I keep the original without any alterations, with all the overlaps and everything, all the limbs. I just keep it. It's a fantastic drawing program. I'm not paid to say that. I wouldn't have a clue who I was. But it's a great drawing program. It's great fun. And also, if you have teens who are into art, or even younger than teens who are into art and like digital tablets and things, if they're on their tablets anyway, get them into Procreate and get them doing something constructive. It'll be a great thing to do if you've got kids who want to go into graphic design or even just want to do their own posters and things for events. Fantastic app to do it in. It's not expensive and it's got so many features. You can do everything from cartoons, line drawings, patterns, to actual serious art on these things. And you're not wasting paper either, so I would class that as relatively green. Okay, I'll see you again soon. Take care.